Rahal during that spin. So we are under a full course yellow that came out on the very first lap here at Cleveland.
By Goodyear, #1 in tires. By AC Delco Automotive Parts. AC Delco, it's like buying time. By Haviland Formula 3 Motor Oil. Add more life to your car. And by Budweiser. Fresh, pure, natural, proud to be your Bud.
The field at Cleveland still lined up behind the PPG pace car. Only 2 drivers actually reported out of that confrontation in the very first turn on the start of the race, Bobby Rahal and Roberto Guerrero. But let's go back and look at that start once again. And this time perhaps we can focus on those people who succeeded in getting through well at the front of the field. Paul Tracy sweeps across in front of Nigel Mansell. Nigel ducks over to the inside alongside Tracy. They come through the corner side by side. The accident occurs. The racing goes toward the Lakeside Straight. And Paul Tracy is eclipsed by Nigel Mansell as they move to that position. Gary?
Paul, here's Bobby Rahal, who's just come back to talk with the crew. Do you have any idea what happened? You obviously got hit from the backside.
More than once. I had a good start, and as I turned into the first turn, somebody hit me from behind my right rear, and that sort of got me sideways. But I was able to correct the slide and get back in the throttle and drive it around. Then somebody really nailed me, and that spun me right in front of, and then Guerrero just clobbered me. So I don't know. I think it might have been even 2 different guys for all I know.
This is always a concern because there is so much room and so many different lines you can take in the first turn on the start here.
Yeah, there's no question of that. You just kind of wonder, it's first lap.
And I know it's disappointing because you've been getting those strong top 5 finishes with a new chassis, and things were really starting to come together for this team.
This doesn't do our championship hopes any good, but you never know. There's a lot of racing left, so it's just unfortunate. I think we had a good car today, and I'm just sad for everybody. Came here from Miller, and for our crew, they worked hard. It's just, you like to go a little bit further than the first corner.
We'll see you next week with better fortune in Toronto, Bobby. Thank you.
Thank you.
Matter of fact, it can be devastating to a man who struggled in the early part of the year, seemed to have turned his course of events around. They now begin to pick up the pace just a bit.
And remember, Rahal comes from here, and there was an enormous ovation when he stepped up when they introduced the driver. So a number of people in the stands very disappointed.
Well, very much considered a hometown driver. He lives in a suburb of Columbus, about 2 miles down the freeway from here. Now with Nigel Mansell pulling them very slowly off of the East Loop and getting the field aligned single file to come back to green.
Well, one of the things we want to wait and see is Wally Dallenbach going to put a penalty. The start was not lined up as he did, or as he made the ruling on Detroit, Paul. So Wally still may have a black flag for somebody up at the start.
The interesting thing was Mansell's move down the inside. He practiced that twice yesterday, long before he knew he was going to be on the front row, and I think that's why he was able to pull that pass off. Here he goes.
Now Mansell picks up the pace. The chicane to the start-finish straight ahead. As the yellow flags drop, the green flag comes out, and we go to racing in the Cleveland Grand Prix, presented by Goodyear, as Nigel Mansell is in front. Tracy is second. Fittipaldi third. Here comes Stefan Johansson, followed by Danny Sullivan.
Johansson having a season that is both good in the sense he's making a tremendously favorable impression, and bad in the sense he can't finish in the top 10.
Mansell has led 6 of 8 races this year, failed to lead at Detroit, and of course he didn't race at Phoenix, but he begins to pull away here.
This is one of those tracks, Paul, where fuel mileage is not as much a factor as it normally is. And the reason for that is that they don't run in low gears. It's a very fast racetrack, and there's very little time spent in first and second gears at this track. So the mileage is a lot better because they cover more miles with less RPM.
Mansell is already driving a little more cautiously than he did.
Hiro Matsushita, left rear, apparently damaged. It shows you how rough this track is, how careful you must be. He'll try and limp that car back to the pits.
Most often a tire like that is caused by a stone cutting it. From something on the runways. It's the track of runways and taxiways. So the tire was cut, and then it just tears up getting it back.
Bobby, at Portland last week, Nigel led, of course, early in the going, but he was driving almost, it seemed, way over even his head. Here he's a little more stable. Of course, he's got Paul Tracy right behind him. Mansell and his team know that their car may not be the fastest right now. They tested for 2 days at Mid-Ohio during this week. Whether they've made improvements or not, who can be sure?
Well, to have Paul Tracy behind him, Sam, is going to give him a headache pretty soon. Paul Tracy's going to push him to the end of the world if he has to.
True, and yet Tracy at this point is not a factor in the championship. That is something Mansell will be thinking of as the day unfolds.
Third place, Emerson Fittipaldi. The battle develops here as Stefan Johansson, in an almost identical Penske chassis, is now giving pursuit. This is the battle on the course. While Tracy is worrying Nigel Mansell, he's not really in a position to pass him just yet. Danny Sullivan closing down behind Johansson as well, and then Teo Fabi.
Now remember, as we watch Emerson Fittipaldi, how canny this man is. Bobby spoke of the heat. It's extremely hot out there. It's a long race. Emerson has won it 3 times. He may be thinking about how he has to pace himself. Neither of the men ahead of him have ever finished this race strongly.
Sam, also, the guy that's in the best shape here, and of course having a good car too, is the guy that's going to do the best. Nobody is in better shape than Emerson Fittipaldi.
Indications now are that they will display the black flag to Ari Luyendyk for a pit speed violation. Apparently run under those yellows, so we'll keep an eye out for that. Now, Paul Tracy is able to pursue Nigel Mansell a little closer, moving to a couple of the passing areas. A lot of good passing occurs right on this next corner.
Interestingly, Mansell has taken the lead more often than anyone in the series this year. Tracy has led the most laps, so the 2 hottest guys are really at the front right here. Tracy taking the look, showing Mansell, hey, I'm back here.
They come through the chicane onto the pit straight, the start-finish straight once again. That wide, fast road course. Here's Paul Tracy again, looks to the inside, lets Mansell know that he's there.
You know, drafting, we're probably wondering if this track is so fast, does drafting work? And it really does work here. Right now, they're going on what we call the long back straightaway, and you definitely, about halfway down, pick up a fairly good draft.
Remember, Tracy's reputation as a man who is fast but also crashes. He must have in his mind right now, he wants to get by Mansell, of course, but he must do so cleanly. Here comes Luyendyk in response to that black flag.
Stop and go penalty. The officials will hold him just a few seconds, then he goes back to the fight.
Boy, they're holding him. Whoa.
Taking this penalty serious, aren't they?
It just doesn't seem to be the same at every race we go to. That one is a long hold. That, in essence, put him a long ways down.
Except, of course, for Ari's brilliant second place at Indy, he has not had much of a season.
Gary Gerald.
Paul, to amplify why they hold them so long, remember, when you enter pit road, it's a straight shot. You don't have that chicane that gets you back on the circuit. So you could have an advantage if you sped into the pits and sped out. That's why they hold them on pit road, to make certain there's no advantage gained whatsoever.
Whoa, as Paul Tracy gets well off the course. Point well taken. If you go into the pits, you're actually missing the chicane 2 turns on the course.
Yes, Paul, and we were watching Tracy as he slid off the track just a little bit. Paul was really smart on that. He eased off the throttle. He raised a lot of dust. He didn't even spin the tires. Came back on, lost a little space to Mansell, but it didn't make a bit of difference to him. Showed he's a little bit smarter for a change.
One big issue, of course, this year has been the starts. The other one has been blocking. And as you saw Tracy close in behind Mansell, and I think we're going to see it again in a lap or so, the question becomes, is Mansell doing any blocking? So far, none at all. But with pressure from Tracy, let's see what Mansell does.
Nothing changes at the top of the order. The field running single file now. Many of the drivers thinking, no doubt, that with the heat here today and the traditional roughness of this track, it is better to try and run single file and save the race car for the end of the race. Led by Nigel Mansell, you take the look back, followed by Paul Tracy, Emerson Fittipaldi, Stefan Johansson, Danny Sullivan, then Teo Fabi. 10 laps are complete of the 85-lap, 201-mile distance. In Cleveland, you ride with 15th place now, Al Unser Jr., though remember, with 2 pit stops, he fell back to the entire last position in the field when they came back to green after the early caution. He's now been carving his way up through the field, and look at the bumps as he goes through, especially in this section. Look how rough it is there, bottoming the shocks out, throwing him around in the car. Somebody with either an engine let go or just, it looked like white smoke, like it might have been a motor problem from someone ahead, Bobby.
I think that was just somebody getting off into the dirt a little bit there, Paul. It probably Boycell right in front of him there.
Danny Sullivan, Teo Fabi as they battle.
Sullivan prepared himself, you see him in the blue car on the left of the screen here, for the heat by playing 2 sets of tennis at 1 p.m. on Friday, the exact time the race was due to start on Sunday. Today, he practiced some tennis.
Counting Johansson just ahead, a three-way battle for fourth. Johansson, Danny Sullivan, and Teo Fabi. On a hot day like this, one would presume that someone in the condition of a Danny Sullivan would fare well.
Well, yesterday he stood outside of his motorhome signing autographs for more than an hour. He's the only driver to come out of the air-conditioned comfort and sign autographs for the fans.
Watch as you watch Sam and Paul. Watch you watch Danny Sullivan, Teo Fabi right behind him at the different grooves that they take. Look at the difference right there going into that turn. Teo Fabi and Danny Sullivan, two different concepts. Now, there isn't a track in the United States that has as much room as this track does. So they can just let their imaginations go to the end of the world. They can try any line that they like. And a lot of different ones seem to work.
And we saw a lot of different lines going into turn one at the beginning of the race.
Take a look here as we watch back at the front of the field. The Penske cars battle. Three different lines going into the corner. And now Paul Tracy comes up to challenge with Nigel Mansell. He gets alongside him on the lakeside straight. Now the power pours on from that Chevrolet engine, and he gets past. But here comes Mansell back with a challenge as they come into the chicane. Both of the cars bouncing over the bumps there. Mansell hot in pursuit as they head out toward the east end.
Well, Tracy did a good job on that because he got underneath him and blocked him. He knew there was a right-hand turn coming up. He blocked Mansell where Mansell was helpless for a little while. So he had to give away and go to second place.
Okay, you used the word block. Legal block or one that they may question?
No, that was a good pass. That was a good, honest pass. And I know everybody's getting a little confused because Cart can't seem to make up their minds what blocky or what is blocky, what isn't, Paul. But that was a good, honest pass, and I didn't mean it to sound like it was any type of
Well, let me
block.
take a shot at the definition. You tell me if I'm right. I'm the leader here. I'm Paul Tracy. I can go into the corner on any line that I want. You come up behind me, you're Nigel Mansell, and you move way to the outside. If I sweep to the outside, then after establishing the line, that's the block. It's the second move, right?
Yes, that's blocky. What it means is if you're driving by your rearview mirrors and purposely trying to zigzag and stop the car from passing you when you knowingly know that he's on a line going by you and you're on a different line, that is blocking.
The question here is the Penske car faster right now at this point in the season than Mansell's Lola? And it looks as if with the ease that Tracy is pulling away, the answer may be yes.
Well, obviously, Sam, that the Penske cars have been faster all weekend. Tracy, at the early part of the race, we're pretty certain he was just laying back behind Nigel because he had the start when they came down. Nigel Mansell wouldn't get on the gas for some reason. Paul went ahead into the first turn. He slowed down a little bit.
That's the pass. Get an idea of how Tracy maneuvered for this one.
So he just blocked. He went by Nigel and stopped Nigel from turning into the turn right there.
It was
As
a
I
beauty.
was saying before, Paul slowed down a little bit at the start, Sam. He let Nigel go on back by, not because he wanted to, but because he's worried about Wally Dog back throwing a black flag as he did in Detroit. So therefore, Mansell got the lead. But it's obvious Tracy's the fastest right now.
Stefan Johansson is closing in here on Fittipaldi. That's Ari Luyendyk in the middle, but remember he